The loud bang of the gate is what woke me up. I still remember the sound as it sliced through the quiet of our neighborhood. It was sharp. It was like metals clanging against each other. It was very early in the morning, actually in the middle of the night. And my first thought, I was groggy, I was confused. I just thought maybe some kids were messing around. Wait, it's not Halloween weekend, is it? Because it's 2 a.m. I reached to the other side. My husband, Mark, was away on another business trip. This time, he had gone on a 3-day business conference to Chicago. His side of the bed, of course, was empty. It was cold. I swung my legs to the side of the bed. As I landed my feet on the floor, it was fall and it was cool. The floorboards were cold underneath my feet. And then I heard another bang, louder this time and more insistent. A shiver of pure unease snaked its way through my spine. It didn't feel like a prank, it felt desperate. The neighborhood is supposed to be safe. So my first thought didn't go to were people trying to break into the apartment. I was like, what's going on? What am I dealing with? And so I crept down the stairs, my heart starting to pound against my ribs, a frantic drum beat in the silent house. I put my eye to the peephole and my breath caught in my throat. On my doorstep, lit by the harsh glow of the porch light, stood two young women. They could have been much older. They couldn't have been much older than 20. One had her fist raised, about to bang the gate again. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with a mix of exhaustion and this kind of fierce, fragile hope. They looked like they had traveled a very long way. They looked like they were at the end of their rope. I had no idea who they were or what they could possibly want. At this hour, at my door, I had no idea that opening that gate and my door would detonate a bomb. It would expose a past that my husband never had and a lie that I had been living for the last 10 years. A lie that I had lovingly, unknowingly helped him create. Hello, my dear friend. This is Anne Ajadi, and I welcome you to the Heart Space. Now, the Heart Space is that space where you're free to be yourself, to unair that which had taken hostage in your heart. It had lived with you for so long. You didn't even know who you can trust. You didn't know who you can tell. And that because maybe it came with shame, it came with regret, it came with guilt. And now you are at a point where you need to breathe and you want a space where you're free to do that. That's why the Heart Space was created. We will do this without judging. We will do this wrapping our arms around you, understanding that there, but for the grace of God, there we go. Now, these are the stories of people I have had the privilege of sitting in the front seat of their lives, and I have the permission to share their stories. So today we're going to be talking about grace and the perfect lie that she lived. For any of this to make sense, you have to understand the life I thought that I had. You have to understand Mark, or the Mark I thought I knew. Wait, was his name even Mark? It could have been Tony or Andrew or Peter, for all I care, because at this point I do not know anymore. Whoever this guy is, we've been married for 10 years, a perfect 10 years. People used to say to us all the time at dinner parties, neighborhood barbecues, that we were the gold standard. They would say things like, you make the rest of us look bad. And I would blush and squeeze Mark's hand, feeling this swell of pride and certainty. We were happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Scratch that. I was happy. I was content. I was fulfilled. Our life was comfortable, built on easy rhythms and shared jokes. We lived in a beautiful two-story house on a quiet tree-lined street, the kind of space that people move to when they want to settle down. We had a golden retriever named Ghost and a garden I was ridiculously proud of. On our Sunday mornings were sacred. We will go to church, and after church we will go for coffee and then have the newspaper in bed, the lazy sound of a lawnmower outside, the smell of pancakes wafting up from the kitchen. Mark always made the pancakes. He joked it was his one true domestic talent. He was an architect at a big prestigious firm. His job meant that he had to travel sometimes 2 or 3 times a month. These trips, they were just a normal part of our lives. I mean, there was nothing to think about. He made me happy. There was no reason, or at least at that point, no reason for me to think that anything could go wrong. What could go wrong? He was a perfect gentleman. Mark would be gone for a few days, sometimes a week, or at most, maybe 10 days. And that for conference meetings, and that for conferences and client meetings. There was no need to question it. Why would I? He was ambitious and he was good at what he did. His success is what paid for this beautiful life that I now have come to enjoy. When Mark was away, I missed him like crazy. But I also loved the countdown to his return. He would always call at night, his voice a warm comfort through the phone. He would ask me about my day, and he always came home with a small gift, a scarf from a local shop, a book, a silly souvenir from whatever city he had been in. It just proved, or so I thought, that Mark was always thinking about me. The Mark I loved was kind, he was steady. He was the man who left little notes for me on the bathroom mirror, by the fridge. He remembered the names of my friends' children. He would slow dance with me in the living room when our song would come on the radio. He had this way of looking at me with this focused intensity, like I was the only one in the world. Maybe I was the only one in his world. It made me feel seen, cherished, and completely safe. Of course, looking back now, it's sickeningly easy to see the cracks. They were tiny, easy to brush off at that time. His past, for example, was a closed book. He told me that his parents had died in a car crash when he was in college. He told me he had no other family. And whenever I talked about it, a shadow would cross his eyes. That deep sadness, I just assumed, was because he was an orphan and he didn't have any other person but me. I was all he had, and that made me really feel good. I never pushed. It felt cruel to make him relive the bad, sad, dark memories of his life. I accepted his story, the narrative of a man that built himself from ground up. And I loved him even more for his resilience, and I thanked him more times than I can remember for pushing through, because I felt that all of that was because destiny had me in view. There were other things that could have triggered the alarm. Mark handled the big picture finances, the investments, the retirement accounts. He said he enjoyed it. And because me, I didn't really like numbers. I don't like to work with numbers. So I let him. It felt like a partnership. He handled the big stuff, and I just needed to keep the home a haven for both of us. It didn't occur to me to question it. I didn't push that we didn't have children. He seemed content with the fact that I wasn't bringing out babies like I would have wanted. I mean, he was a good guy. Why wouldn't I want to give him babies? But he didn't push. He just told me that I was all that he needed and he was content with that. I mean, tell me, where would you find someone who would accept you hook, line, and sinker, no questions asked? And if he did that for me, why would I do that for him? Those were my thoughts. I trusted him deeply, trusted him, believed in him. I didn't question any of his moves. He made me happy, and that's all I needed. I felt like if I questioned him, I would have betrayed. It would be me betraying him. Now, when I look back, the irony is not lost on me. It's the bitter pill that I will swallow the rest of my life. Because sometimes in a quiet moment, I would look at him and he would have that strange look in his eyes, like he was pondering over something that seemed so far away. It would happen when we were watching a movie, or maybe doing some random house chores. He would have this profoundly melancholy gaze that would just settle over his face. His eyes would be so far away. And when I would touch him to ask him, what's wrong? He would blink like I woke him up from a slumber. And he would give me that warm, sad smile. He would brush it off and say, nothing, honey. Just thinking. And then he would say it's about a project, some job he's about to do, some meeting he was having, or some naughty client that he had. It was enough for me. I accepted his reasons and I comforted him. I had no idea what he was thinking. How would I have known that what he was thinking had nothing to do with grief, but more of an abandonment? I would have thought that he had demons that he was dealing with that only a heart like his could harbor. How would I know that he had a past that was very much alive and at that moment was driving through the night to find him? I was living a meticulously designed house of cards, so blissfully, devastatingly unaware how fragile it was. Somehow I forgot that saying that my mother would say, that the house built with spittle will come down at the first sign of the dew of the morning. Come back to the present. I unlatched the deadbolts, the click sounding unnaturally loud in the silent house. My hand was trembling as I turned the knob. Somehow, my spirit knew something was wrong. I just didn't think, couldn't imagine that whatever was wrong would have to do with that life that I had lived for the last 10 years. To the best of my imagination, these two young women were stranded in the middle of nowhere in the night. They sought answers, or they sought refuge in some place, and it so happened to be my house. How would I think that my life was right there in the center of that which these young ladies embodied? The two young women, they stood there. They looked even younger and more vulnerable now that we are up close. The taller one, the one who had been knocking, had dark, curly hair pulled into a messy ponytail. The other one was shorter with wide, frightened eyes, like a deer in headlights. They looked to me like they were sisters. Can I help you? My voice came out as a tight whisper. I could barely hear myself. And the taller one stepped forward and she said, "We're so sorry, Mom. We really are deeply sorry to bother you this late. My name is Dear Caller. And this is my sister, Tiwalade. Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight of exhaustion that made her sound much older. Tiwalade must have felt, look, you're wasting time. Let's just get on with it already. She blurted out in the middle of her sister's sentence and says, we're looking for our father. Her voice was high, it was thin, and we were told he might live here. Confusion. Your father. I think you have the wrong number. You have the wrong house. It's just me and my husband that live here. Dear Kola's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out a folded, crumpled photograph. Her hand shook as she held it out to me. Is this your husband? I took the photo. It felt like the world just tilted. The air went out of my lungs in a sharp. It was Mark, a younger Mark, maybe 10, 15, maybe 12 years younger. But it was him. His eyes were okay. I looked up from the photograph and looked into the girl's eyes. They didn't need to say any more. They looked like him. One had his eyes. The other had his face. I looked at him and his two little girls in the photograph. Obviously, everybody was younger at the time this photograph was taken. Those girls were standing in front of me at the time. They were small girls. My brain just refused to process what I was seeing. Where did you get this? I stammered, my fingers tightening on the picture. That is our father. Dear Kola woke me from wherever I traveled to. 10 years ago, he left us. The words did not compute. That's when Mark and I met. And we've been married for 10 years. The timeline was a screeching, impossible collision. No, I was shaking my head. A denial was rising up from deep part of me. No, you're mistaken. My husband, his family died long time ago. He doesn't even have any children. Tiwalade started to cry openly now, this quiet hiccuping sobs. He left us, she whispered. I was choked with a decade of pain. He just disappeared. He left a note. A note? I echoed. My voice was hollow. It said he needed to find himself. Dear Kola said the words were dripping with a bitterness that only years of unanswered questions can create. He said he heard voices, that he didn't know who he was anymore. He promised us that he would come back, but he never did. Find himself. That phrase sounded familiar. It was like a key turning in a lock that I never knew existed. Mark had said that to me once early on to explain why he'd left his small town. He framed it as a young man's quest for identity after losing his parents. He had repurposed his own cruel words into a romantic, tragic backstory for me. The deceit was so complete, so audacious. I felt a wave of dizziness and I had to grip the door frame to stay upright. I looked at these two young women, saw the profound loss etched onto their faces. I could hear the psychological toll of abandonment in the way dear Kola talked about making silly choices as a teenager, of acting out, of struggling to find our footing in a world where our anchor had just vanished. She spoke of the constant gnawing feeling of worthlessness, the self-blame that kids internalize when a parent leaves. Was I not good enough? Was I the reason he left? These questions, dear Kola said, haunted her youth. We just want to understand, Tiwalade pleaded, her eyes searching mine for anything. We don't want to cause you trouble. We just need to know why. A storm of emotions surged through me. I was mad. A rage so huge it could burn down the whole house. My entire reality, the last 10 years of my life was a lie. I was living it. I did not start it. How did I get here? What happened to me? Why did I go out the day I met Mark? What? The questions flooded my heart. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to process this whole thing. But under the anger, there was this deep, aching compassion for these young women, his daughters, Mark's children. He had abandoned them with a lifetime of trauma and then walked into my life, built a new one as if they never existed. My perfect life was built on the wreckage of other people's lives, and I was an active participant of what I knew nothing about. Oh, my mind was a whirlwind of memories, all of them now tainted. Mark was smiling at me over dinner, holding my hand, waving goodbye as he left for his very business trip. Was any of it real? Did he ever love me? Or was I just a convenient part of his escape? And what was he running from anyway? I looked from the photograph back to their tear-streaked faces. They were not a threat. They were victims. Just as now, I, Grace, has also joined the victim gang. These girls have spent the last decades grieving a man that was not dead. And I have spent the last 10 years loving a man that did not exist. Come inside. I said the words, feeling so strange in my mouth. Here was I, welcoming strangers into my home. I opened the door wider, stepping back into a house that was no longer mine. A house I now realized was the stage someone else had built for the second act of his life. As I stepped over the threshold, I felt the last pieces of my old life crumble to dust. That silence in my once happy home was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It was the beginning of the end. And before I get into how I started picking up the wreckage of that night, I just need to ask you to do something for me. For you who is listening to me, if this story is triggering something inside you, please hit the like button. Subscribe. Let's talk about it. Let me hear what you have to say. Let's go back to the silence. After dear caller and Tiwalade left, leaving me with a phone number on a napkin, the house felt unnervingly still. The first light of dawn was starting to creep through the windows, casting a long, eerie shadow. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I mean, maybe it would have been better if I cried, but I couldn't. I could not bring myself. The tears just refused to flow. My emotions had just shut down. They left me with this chill, terrifying clarity. My life, my perfect life, was a crime scene, and I was the detective. That shock was a physical weight in my chest. I had a problem breathing at that point. And for the next few hours, I moved through the house like a ghost. I made coffee on autopilot. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mark and I had shared thousands of meals. And I stared at the photograph. His smiling face was a grotesque mask. The love I'd felt for him was cuddling into something sharp and metallic. Like the taste of blood, the grief would come later. Right now, I needed proof. My investigation started in his office. A room I'd always respected as his private space. It was meticulously organized. It had to be for someone with that kind of dark mind. Books on design lined the shelves. Blueprints were neatly rolled out, and his desk was clear except for his laptop, a single framed photo of me. I looked at my own smiling face and felt a surge of nausea. Was that a woman or a fool? Or just a prop in his stage play? I started with the obvious places: desk, drawers filled with nothing but pens and project files. I checked the books, looked for hollowed out compartments, nothing. For a second, I doubted myself. Could they be wrong? But the look in their eyes, the detail about the note, no, he was too careful, too methodical. The truth was here somewhere. The truth, I found it. Then my eyes landed on the top shelf of the bookcase. There were several old boxes of his college stuff, but behind them, tucked away in the back, was a simple brown shoebox. I'd never seen that shoebox before. I needed a stepladder to reach it. As my fingers closed around the cardboard, I just knew this was it. The box was surprisingly heavy. I set it on his desk. My heart pounded, and I slowly lifted the lid. What was inside that box knocked the wind right out of me. It was time. It was a time capsule of the life he tried to erase. On top was a stack of photos. Mark at a birthday party holding a little girl in a pink bow. Mark pushing two giggling children on a tire swing. Mark standing next to a woman, not me, in front of a charming little house. She was pretty, with a warm smile. They looked like a family. Under the pile of photos was a manila envelope. My fingers felt numb as I opened it. Inside, a marriage certificate for Mark Peterson and Anike Peterson, and birth certificates, one for Dear Kola and Naked Peterson, and one for Tiwalade Grace Peterson. Legal documents proving my entire marriage was a sham. He was still married to her. I wasn't his wife. I was, what was I? The other woman who didn't even know that she was the other woman. At least his name is Mark. The only true thing that I now know about him. The last thing in the box was a single folded piece of paper. The handwriting was Mark's. I knew it anywhere. That same handwriting from a decade of my own birthday cards and love notes. My dearest Anike, it began. He wasn't writing to me. I don't know how to explain what I can't understand myself. There's a noise in my head. They tell me I'm a fraud, a stranger in my own life. I look at you and our beautiful girls, and I feel love so deep it terrifies me, but I also feel nothing. I have to go away. I have to find myself. This is not goodbye forever. This is a promise that I will come back whole. Please, please, please forgive me. I love you. I read that note 3 times. The cold clarity inside me ignited into pure rage. Why did he even have a copy of that note? Why? He had written it to his wife. So why did he write 2 of it? Or did he forget to give it to her? The voices, the mental breakdown he had used his own psychological crisis as an excuse to abandon his family. He had weaponized his pain and turned it into a get out of jail free card. And then he had built a new, comfortable prison with me as his unwitting warden. He hadn't gotten help. He hadn't healed. He just started over. With a steady hand, I didn't even know I had. I took up my phone, photographed everything. The certificates, the photos, the letter. I created a digital file of his betrayal, and then I called him. He answered on the second ring, cheerful and warm. Hey, honey, I was just thinking about you. I kept my voice, unnaturally calm, unnaturally calm, a flat, dead tone. It's been eventful. When are you coming home, Mark? Tomorrow night. Flight gets in around 7. Everything okay? You sound strange. Everything is fine. I lied. I had to. The word tasting like ash. I just miss you. See you tomorrow. I hung up before he could answer. I had 24 hours. 24 hours to decide what to do with that bomb that just detonated my whole life. But as I sat there, I knew that the performance was over. It was time to bring down the curtain. It was time to wrap it all up. It was time to face the reality that had now come to be my life. And as you may guess it, as you may have guessed it, the next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I didn't sleep or eat. I moved through the day in a thick fog. Every mundane task, walking the dog, paying a bill, texting my sister, that everything was fine, felt like a betrayal of the chaos that was raging inside me. The loving wife was gone, replaced by a woman I didn't even recognize, forged in the fire of deception. I prepared for his arrival, all right. Like a general preparing for battle, I laid out the evidence on our polished dining room table. I arranged it all. The photo of him with his daughters, the marriage certificate to Anike, the 2 birth certificates, and in the center, his notes to them. At 7:15, I heard his key in the lock. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, full of that cheerful energy he always had after a trip. I didn't answer. I just stood by the dining room entrance, arms crossed, and waited. He walked into the foyer, dropping his bags. "Grace!" He saw me and his smile faltered. Sensing the ice in the air, "What's wrong?" "We need to talk." My voice flat, and nodded towards the dining room. He walked past me, then stopped dead. I watched his eyes move over the items on the table. I saw the exact moment recognition hit. His face went gray. His confident posture just crumbled. He sank into a chair, put his head in his hands, and let out his ragged, guttural sob. I felt no pity. I had visitors last night, I said, my voice like glass. 2 young women, Diokola and Tiwalade, they were looking for their father. He flinched at their names. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Grace, I can explain." "Can you?" I shot back, my control finally cracking. "Can you explain 10 years of lies? A wife and 2 daughters you abandoned. Can you explain looking at me in the eye every single day and pretending to be someone you are not?" It wasn't like that, he choked out. I had a breakdown. I was sick. I was hearing things, voices telling me I was worthless. He was reciting the script from his letter, the alibi perfected for 10 years. I didn't know what was real. I just had to run. Then I met you, and you were like a light. For the first time, the voices stopped. Oh, Mark claimed he had blocked out his past. That building a life with me was the only thing that kept him sane. He swore he'd always planned to go back, but shame and fear had paralyzed him. Year after year, the lie got bigger. I listened, and my anger solidified into a profound, weary certainty. I wasn't listening to a remorseful man. I was listening to an escape artist. His solution to a crisis wasn't to get help, but to amputate a part of his life and start over. He didn't abandon one family. He had a pattern. What will happen if the voices came back? Will he disappear on me too? "So what was I, Mark?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Was I your recovery, your medicine, or just an elaborate lie you've ever told?" "No," he sobbed, reaching for my hand. I pulled it back like I'd been burned. "I love you, Grace. What we have is real." "Nothing about this is real," I said, the finality of it settling in my soul. I looked at the man I had loved and saw a stranger, a ghost. "You're not the man I married, because the man I married never existed." That was the truth that even I had to admit to myself. In that moment, a strange calm waltzed all over me. The path forward was brutally clear. There was no fixing this. Trust once shattered to this degree can never be put together. This wasn't a crack in the foundation. It was a revelation there was no foundation at all. "Get out," I said. The 2 words hung in the air, simple and absolute. Mark stared at me, his face a mask of disbelief. "Grace, please, we can walk through this. I can get help. There is no we, I stated. There is you, your lies, and your other family. And then there is me. I'm done. Pack a bag. I want you out of this house tonight. The fight drained out of him. He knew an ending when he saw one. He just nodded slowly and walked upstairs. I heard him moving around in our bedroom, zipping his suitcase. An hour later, he came down carrying the same bag he'd left with for this trip. He paused at the door. I'm so sorry, Grace, he whispered. I just looked at him. You should be telling them that. I said, not me. And then he was gone. The click of the door closing was the sound of my life breaking in two, the 10 years before and everything that would come after. The aftermath was a blur of methodical action. Action was the only thing that kept me from falling apart. The next day I called a lawyer. The legal proceedings were swift. Our marriage was annulled, erased as if it never happened. Actually, it never did. Because legally, there was no marriage. He was married, still married to the other family. The house was sold. I took my half and walked away from the ghost-filled rooms that echoed with a decade of lies. It's been a year now. I live in a small apartment in a new city, a place with no memories attached. It's modest, but it's all mine. The first few months were a haze of grief, anger, profound identity crisis. I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. About 6 months ago, I called the number dear caller had given me. I met her and her sister for coffee. I told them everything I had found. I apologized for my unknowing role in their pain. It was one of the hardest conversations of my life, but they deserved the period at the end of their sentence. I don't know what happened to Mark. He disappeared from my life as completely as he had from his daughter's lives. Sometimes I wonder if he just started over again somewhere else. It's a chilling thought. Sometimes I wonder, was he even a human being? Or if he was, what kind was he? The betrayal was his, but the recovery I've learned is all mine. I'm not the naive, trusting woman I was a year ago. That woman is long dead and gone. In her place is someone stronger, who has looked into the abyss of a great lie and found the strength to walk away. I'm learning to trust my own intuition again, to find safety, not in another person, but within myself. My life is quieter now, but it's honest. And for the first time in a very long time, it feels real. I want to thank you for listening to Grace's story, Grace, Mark, dear caller, Anike, and Tiwalade's story. And I'm grateful that you made it this far. And I want you to please consider sharing this. I want you to just answer a question. If this was someone you know, or if this was you, what were your reactions, or what would your reaction be? I want you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Or better still, tell me your own story of resilience. Tell me how life threw a curveball in your way. Tell me what you had to endure that you had no clue about. Remember, this is the heart space. It's a space where we share all that had taken room in our hearts for so long. We needed a trusting person or space to do that in. We will be back here in a couple, but for now, I want you to know you're not alone, and it is okay. You will pull through this. Love you. Bye-bye.